Okay. Yes, very good morning to one and all. Today is the last day of this national webinar, Faculty Development Program on Impact of COVID-19 on the Higher Education and Society. Today, we are going to get connected with the President of Karnataka Government Teachers Association, Dr. Manjunath, who has consented to be with us to deliver the valedictory address. Dr. Manjunath is the Vice President of the Department of History, Jnana Bharati Alumnus Association. Dr. Manjunath is also President of Bangalore University Teachers Forum. Dr. Manjunath is President of Karnataka Government College Teachers Housing Cooperative Society Limited. He is getting connected to us. We need to wait for 2 minutes. He is also General Secretary of KGCTA as well. He was President of KGCTA from 2011 to 2014. He is very helpful, humble, reliable, and very responding to the teachers' problems. Manjunath, sir. Dr. Manjunath. Okay. Sir has sent a message that he will not be able to get connected with us today because he is trying very hard for the areas which is pending for the teachers. He being a very dedicated and committed teacher, he sent a message saying that he was expecting that the files would be cleared yesterday itself, but there is some technical hitch and hence probably today the work would be done. So he has sent a message saying, wishing us all the best in our program, and has said that he can face and talk to the teachers only when the work that he has taken up at present, that is the areas issue of the teachers, is addressed at the earliest. Sir, thank you. Thank you so much for your commitment. Thank you. And I have reached out your message to all the participants. Okay, participants. Strong minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. Weak minds discuss people, said Socrates. Extending a very hearty welcome to all the participants for this week-long National Faculty Development webinar on the impact of COVID-19 on the higher education and the society, organized by Government First Grade College, Hoskote, which is located in rural Bangalore. I am Prasanna Udpikar, Associate Professor from the Department of English, the host of this program. Before we get started, it's my duty to remind you all once again that all of your audios are muted from the central control panel, and hence your opinions, your questions, your suggestions, your advices. As it is the last day, I'm sure that you have got a lot of suggestions, a lot of questions to be cleared from your end. You have got to type it out in the chat box, which you find it in your control panel. We would be taking up those questions after the talk of the resource person. I extend our resource person, Dr. Aruna Yadiyal from Mangalore. She will be getting connected to us. Dr. Aruna, are you online?
Yeah, I'm online. I'm
Yes.
online.
Doctor has already come, extending a very hearty welcome to the doctor. In this COVID-19 period, there is a lot of psychological ups and downs that each one of us are going through. The facts reveal that there is a lot of anxiety, there is a lot of panic attacks, suicidal inclination, fear, etc. And hence, we thought it would be apt to get connected with a doctor, a psychiatrist, who would guide us how we have got to maintain the mental health during this period to go ahead with health and a sound mind. Now, let me give glimpses of the achievements of Dr. Aruna Yadiyar. Dr. Aruna Yadiyar is assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry, Father Muller Medical College from 2018 to 2012. She has worked as associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry at Father Muller's Medical College from October 2012 onwards till 28 to 2018. She has worked as staff in charge of the Addiction Center, Velankani Ward in Father Muller's Medical College. Currently, she is working as professor and unit head of psychiatry, B unit from May 2017 onwards till date. Madam is a multifaceted personality. Being a doctor, she is also a prolific writer and a voracious reader. Let me go through the list of the awards and honors she has honored with. Ramabhai Vasudeva Rao Pawar Gold Medal Prize in April 2001. She bagged for securing highest marks in preventive and social medicine in MBBS Phase 3 Part 1 examination. Malkar Siddhappa Award for securing highest marks in MBBS Phase 3 Part 1 examinations held in April 2001. Dr. Aruna bagged first rank in MD Psychiatry exams held in April 2008 by Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences. Dr. Aruna also bagged late Shri Katil Appupai Award presented by Indian Psychiatric Society, Karnataka chapter in August 2008 for the best outgoing student in the year 2008 in MD Psychiatry. Dr. S.S. Jairam Award for publishing articles, book in English and Kannada for the enhancement of public awareness and educating public in the field of mental health for the year 2016-17 in CANSIPS 2017 at Hampi Hospate on 1st 9th 2017. Dr. Aruna was recognized as convener of Women and Mental Health Section, IPS Specialty Section in 2018. Dr. Aruna is also honorary editor of IPS KC for 2019 to 2021, which is a very honorary position. Now, having glimpsed at extracurricular activities of Dr. Aruna, Dr. Aruna is interested in Kannada literature and drawing. She has written several short stories with psychiatric topics as themes, which have been published in popular Kannada week magazines. Debut novel by name, Manavemba Mayamruga. The title of the novel is Manavemba Mayamruga, was published in Taranga magazine, a popular Kannada weekly, in 10 episodes from September 2015 to October. Currently, she is writing a column by name Manoratha in Udayavani Fortnightly since April 2016. She has published articles about mental health issues in Prajavani and Tushar magazine. So Dr. Aruna has command in both the languages, Kannada as well as English. Dr. Aruna currently also holds the position of Secretary for Prevention of Sexual Harassment Committee in Father Muller Medical College. She is the core member of the Research Committee for NAC. She is NAC Coordinator for the Department of Psychiatry. She is media coordinator for the Department of Psychiatry. She is a member of the tutor ward system allocated for the batch of 2009 MBBS. She is treasurer of Mangalore Psychiatry Society. She is a Life Fellow, convener of WMH Specialty Section 2018 of Indian Psychiatry Society. She is a Life member, EC member, honorary editor for 2019-21 IPS KC, and she is also Executive Council member of AMC, that is Association of Medical Consultation, Mangalore, and Joint Secretary of IMA Mangalore branch. Madam has many publications to her credit too. Madam, your profile itself is so impressive, and all the participants here are eagerly awaiting to get advices and the insights of how to have a sound mind in this COVID-19 period. Welcome to you, Madam. Over to Dr. Aruna Yadihar. Dr. Aruna, do you have a PPT to be presented?
No PPT. I will just be presenting like that, and maybe I will give a 5-minute or 10-minute break after each topic so that people can interact or ask questions, or if they have doubts. So we will be doing it this way. I don't have any PPT to share, but I can.
Doesn't matter, madam. Doesn't matter, because some of our resource persons have not brought PPT. Why I asked is, in case you have got a PPT, we would like to share the screen with you. So we shift to you, and you can go ahead, madam.
Just a minute. I will connect it to.
Yes. Madam is getting connected. So participants, just 2 more minutes. She is already online. Some technical hitch. Madam?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry for the delay. Just my battery was.
Okay.
I think this is it. Sorry for the delay.
It's okay, madam.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Can I start it there?
Yes. The audio will be to you now. You can start.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I hope you're all enjoying a good day. And I hope the lockdown release has begun so that people can be able to, breathe in or get back to the new normal soon. And let me go through some of the psychological impacts that this lockdown or this pandemic has had on people. I hope people can hear what I'm saying. Am I audible to everybody?
Yes, you are very audible. Yes, very clear it is.
In between, I may switch off my video, or even if I switch off the video, I won't be, switching off the mic, so you can hear me. And if there are any doubts, you can keep it jotted down, and at the end of each session, I will be asking for a small break so that, you can get back to me.
Yes, sure.
So coming to this corona pandemic, the first thing what we need to realize is it's not just an epidemic. Epidemic is diseases which spread very fast across populations. But in a pandemic, what happens is the proportion along or the geographical boundaries where it spreads is too vast. And pandemic means it is pan, that is, it covers all, and it covers almost the whole globe. So when something like a pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic or something like that swept the world, and it was, we can't say that it caught us unawares. There were warning signals, there were some news about that happening. when it happened, see, the last time the pandemic resulted was around 100 years back. So none of us in our lifetimes had seen what a pandemic will be, or we were not yet ready to deal with it. So it is happening for everybody in their lifetimes for the first time. That is for the current generation. Whatever age they belong, it is happening for the first time. So when something is happening and when you're not prepared for it, naturally the psychological impact has to happen, because man is a socially connected being, and man is his mind is as important as his body, and we are more of a technically speaking, we are different from other beings in that we have developed brains, and we have something called mind inside our brains. So mind is one of the functions of the brain. So that leads to a lot of psychological issues when it comes to pandemic also. Not just health concerns, not just physical health concerns, but also mental health concerns. So as we see coronavirus pandemic, as it swept the world across, there were certain degrees of fear or worries or concerns, and it can be divided into two groups. Those worries and fears and anxieties which was happening to the whole population in general, like those people with normal mental health too suffered a lot because of this. And there were certain groups which were more vulnerable than others. Those included older people, older elderly people, or those with already having health problems, those with already having chronic physical illnesses. It may be diabetes, or it may be chronic renal failure, or those requiring dialysis, or those already having something like cancer or terminal illness, or requiring a day-to-day monitoring of their health, or they were already deteriorating in physical health. And there was a special group of people who had mental illness prior to the illness also. So those group of people were also very vulnerable. That is what we need to recognize at this situation. And there are some other people who are more vulnerable, maybe like, children or teenagers who were bound to be at home. Those children whom we always advise to, stop playing with your phone and go out and play, and these kind of things we used to say to the children. But those very same children who like to have a free hand at everything were supposed to be inside the house and without contact with any of their friends or school or any such activities. So all this population became a little bit more vulnerable to psychological ill-being rather than well-being. They became a little bit more vulnerable to the psychological problems than the general population. But we can't disregard the psychological impact it had on the general population as such also, because we have to understand that if we have to speak from a public health perspective, or if we have to tell about what it did to the community as such, this pandemic or this lockdown or the quarantine or the regulations which followed that, which was not in hands of any individual person. So when that happened, how did the public react, or how did the psychology of the public react? Even these things are very important, and we have to understand that it had a main psychological impact on the public as such, or on the public health as such, in the way that it increased levels of stress and stress related mental health disorders. So when we say about stress was always there. Stress was universal. Stress didn't spare anybody till now. But it was at an individual basis, and it didn't happen that the same stress affected everybody at the same time till now. So when it happened, it was very difficult that people chose to, how they chose to overcome the stress and how they reacted or responded to the stress. It depended variously among different people. So it is not like one person will respond to stress in a certain way and that will be mimicked or emulated by everybody. It doesn't happen that way. As we are diverse in our psychological reactions to stresses, each person will react to the stress that is before him in a very different way. And that's why the diverse reactions were also very varied. I mean, the reactions which came out from that also was very varied. And not only the pandemic or the fear or the concern, there were many rules and regulations and guidelines imposed on actually on a hour-to-hour basis or on a daily basis due to this pandemic. And once that started happening, it induced a lot of stress or anxiety in the public, because we don't know that the same regulation today what we are following is going to stay for the next 2 days or not, or what is going to happen next week. So see, if I'm a person of habit, there are many people who are very used to their routine thing, or they are creatures of habit, we can say. So they like doing things in a certain way. They like to keep their dresses ready for the next morning. They like to know what they are doing the next morning. Maybe 9 to 10 I will be here, 10 to 11 I will be here, 12 to 2 I am doing this, 2 to 3 I will take lunch, 3 to 4 is my exercise schedule, something like that. They have a schedule built up inside their mind, and that is very easy to follow when they are following an active, productive work life. But once they are put out of this, you don't know what is happening. Today is Sunday already, and Monday you don't know what you are going to do. You don't know whether you are going to have a correct routine or schedule and all. So this kind of thing usually puts people into a lot of disarray, and they don't know what is going to happen. And uncertainty also. Like you see people dying like flies in New York. The same situation has been mimicked in Mumbai recently. So you don't know whether you will be affected, whether your loved ones who are there will be affected, or somebody nearby is affected, and what will you do about it? So these anxieties and uncertainties that what is going to happen in the future has had a very significant psychological impact on the public health, mental health or psyche, that is what we call, a lot too. So we need to stress on that also. And it was due to, usual activities, usual routines, usual livelihoods were lost for quite some time. So that has had a very significant impact on the psychological health, and it led to a lot of other things. Secondarily to what we say, like maybe loneliness, or depression, or something like a harmful substance use. We know what happened, and all of you have been aware when you're seeing the social media. It was. I would have deemed it funny if it was not so tragic, because I saw lines and lines of people standing outside the liquor stores to buy liquor once the lockdown was released. And that itself, it's a mirror to what our culture is going through, or something like that. Like people ask you to buy essentials, and people deemed substance like alcohol to be essential. So that is where we have to see our culture as a mirror. It's very easy to say, it is very easy to take pride in our country and say that our culture is the best culture, and there is nobody who is more proud of Bharat than me, Mera Bharat Mahan. These things sound good when you say it, with a nationalistic pride or something. But the day when I saw that so many people were standing in line outside, in braving police sirens and everything to buy liquor. That is, as a person who has worked in de-addiction department, I felt that they are standing in line to buy death. That is what I felt. And they found it essential, they found it essential, like wheat, rice, or atta, or something like that. So, that itself suggests that it is very easy for people to flip into substance abuse, harmful substance abuse, like tobacco or alcohol, or even some people might take into binge eating. Because you're at home, you tend to eat things which you would otherwise normally eat. You indulge yourself in junk food or easily available food, rather than going to the pains of cooking healthy food or looking into calorie conscious food. So all these things, loneliness, depression, panic, anxiety, a feeling of terror, a feeling of uncertainty, and a feeling of that you don't have control over the situation, harmful substance use, all these can lead to a very graver or fatal outcome also. That is, fatal self-harm behavior or suicidal behavior. So these kind of behaviors, when it ends fatally, it is very significant loss for the person who is significant to that person, and also death by anything. Death, if it happens due to COVID-19, or death it happens due to suicide, it incurs the same loss for the person who survives that suicide. So we have to think that all these areas, the general public went through a lot of hardship, not only in terms of physical hardship, but also in terms of psychological hardship. And among these people, there were some people who were affected more than the general public. That we have to acknowledge at some point. See, we may very breezily say, or very superficially say that, this pandemic is like a storm, and we are facing the same storm, so we are in the same boat. But we have to understand that it is the same storm, but we are definitely not in the same boat. Some of us are definitely more comfortable and well placed than the others. So we have to acknowledge that there were certain significant portions of society which went into a lot more hardships than people who did not have to undergo such hardships. For example, there were some people in heavily affected areas. Let us say for New York, or let us say Italy, or let us say in India, Maharashtra or Delhi or Gujarat, where the cases kept on peaking. Issues of healthcare service access became very difficult. Like people were really panicking. If I go to a doctor, if I have some problem, who will see me? Where to go? Which doctor will see me? Because all hospitals did shut down, including the one which I was working. Only emergency services were open, and our OPD just got shut down because the lockdown required it to do so. We can't afford to have a crowd in OPD of 60, 90 people sitting together. So we had to lock it down. And what about those patients who were daily coming to, let us take, for example, just my college, Father Muller Medical College, Psychiatry OPD, a small department, where 60 to 90 patients used to come daily and sit in that room. So what happened to all those patients, and what will those patients do? So those people who had health problems, for them, access to medical service became a real problem at that time. And we just can't superficially say that we are in the same boat. We were not in the same boat. We were much more comfortably placed. Some of us were fortunate enough to be comfortably placed than the others. Same thing with the migrant laborers who had to walk kilometers together from their workplace. If you ask, from my point of view, I feel that they would have stayed in the place where they were working and waited for relief measures. They needn't have gone to their native place, but it is left to them. It is their home. So they do have a right to travel to whatever place they feel comfortable or they feel home at. And those people who had already a physical illness, or those people who already had a mental health problem, those people suffered the most because they didn't know what to do with their disease. Because see, none of those diseases, if you are a heart patient, if you're a stroke patient, if you're pregnant and about to give delivery, if you're having post-pregnancy problems, if your child is sick, none of this goes away once COVID comes, or none of this is going to just take leave, or none of this is going to be under lockdown just because coronavirus is there or the pandemic is going on or government has imposed a lockdown. So we have to understand that the other diseases did not take a leave. The other diseases didn't stop tormenting humanity. At the same time, coronavirus didn't stop either. So it was a kind of dual edge. And one more group of people who were more vulnerable or who underwent a lot of stress during this period is frontline workers during this period. And it doesn't just include doctors or healthcare workers. I have seen more than doctors, the community which suffered in healthcare were nurses. They were put on all kind of duties, long hours of stay, and there was no protective personal equipment given to all, and it was a very stressful period for them. And not only them, ward boys, FNOs, janitors who keep the sanitation up in a health place, all these people, and they don't have the recognition or the high pay that a doctor has. So we need to understand that they work for meager amounts of money. They work for very less amounts of money for the hours of work that they put into their place. So all these healthcare workers who were in the front line, when all of us were asked to stay at home and be safe, these were the people who were going out daily and who were working also. And not only just healthcare workers, I have seen policemen everywhere. They didn't get a break at all. And there was so much public backlash for them also. So the amount of stress that they have to undergo, see, they have to listen to their rules, guidance keeps on changing. And some VIP comes in from the rules, they don't know what to do about it. And the public is enraged against them. Daily or changing rules. So whom do they take their anger against? They take on the police on the road, but he's not the one who is enforcing the, he's not the one who is forming the guidelines or forming the rules. He's just there to carry on the act. So, those people also struggled a lot. There were other people who were in the lowest rung of the society, we call them Paura Karmikas or, sanitary workers. I don't think they were even given a week's leave or something because this lockdown occurred. They were there every day to clear our garbages. They were there to sweep the roads. They were there to keep the roads clean for garbage disposal and everything. And if they were not there, what would have happened? So we need to think that all these people, they didn't have worries or anxieties because they were stepping out when all other people were safely in their homes. So we need to think that, yes, they had a lot of problems and they were a section of people who were much more vulnerable to mental health disease and psychological impact when compared with the general public. But that this just doesn't rule out that public health didn't suffer. Public health suffered a lot, mainly due to loss of routine, loss of jobs, or loss of livelihoods, loss of not knowing what to do in the future, and fear about the future was also a major thing that put them together. And if you ask me about psychological impact, what it did to the psychological well-being of couples, because to be in a happy marriage, sometimes you need space. And the wife and husband, when they are working in different working hours, the wife is at home, the husband is working, or when the husband comes back, the wife is there for him to care. All this used to happen on a very regular basis when everything was hunky-dory, but it didn't happen during the pandemic. What happened mainly during the pandemic was everybody was thrown in the same space at the same time and asked to cope with each other, especially with the kids. And you know what housewives went through this at this sort of time? They had no break at all. They had to feed 4-5 grown-up beings, bodies in the house, and there was no maids or domestic help to help in the cooking, neither to clean the house. So it was a very hard time for the housewives also. And so it was a lot of work for those 2 or 3 months. So we need to recognize that different people suffer differently during the same time. Though the storm may be the same, we were definitely in different boats throughout the journey. And what does American Psychiatric Association, because America is one of the top countries which had a high virus infection load, even the death toll was more following China, but still, and they may have difficulty sleeping, insomnia might set in, and they might be feeling on edge all the time. So if any of these symptoms are present, then it means that the person is always he's subject to anxiety, or he's liable to be in a panic mode kind of situation. Along with this, what we have is panic attacks probably, and panic attacks are usually occurring sorry, my video went off. Hello. Hello. I think my video went off for a small time. The panic attacks. How do panic attacks appear? Or there may be a lot of sweating or trembling, or shortness of breath, or a choking sensation kind of thing. And along with that, there will be increased heart rate. That is, you can feel your heart pounding inside your chest. Increased heart rate and racing breath, that kind of thing. And a feeling of dread. Most panic attack people explain it like, it ascends on a crescent growth. All these features go on increasing. They reach a peak. Somewhere they say that either I am going to die in the next 10 minutes, or I am just, I may go mad, and you may have to admit me in a SVM. That is what they are saying, because that feeling of impending doom, that extreme fear, that is what panic attack is all about. And it happens suddenly without any warning. Sometimes suddenly they start feeling like this. And there is something called anticipatory anxiety in panic attacks. That is, you start tending to feel that, yeah, this episode is over, but I may have these panic attacks anytime now. What if it happens when I'm speaking with my daughter? What if it happens when I'm speaking to the milkman? What if others in the community see me like this, in such a state? So all these kind of things, and that leads to avoidance of situations. They totally stop going out, or that may be helpful in such a situation, but still they start avoiding people. They start avoiding being seen by people, and it leads to changes in routines and all these kind of things. So these panic attacks are to be taken very seriously. It suggests that they are not well psychologically. And the next thing is depression. See, everybody, you can tell that who is happy in these corona times, everybody has to be depressed, so it's not such a big thing. But sadness is different from depression. If we are able to enjoy the pleasurable things in life, still we are not depressed actually. So depression is a little bit of a deeper concern to psychiatrists. So we need to recognize that. And what are the core features of depression? One is, the core feature is anhedonia. That is what we call as lack of interest in pleasurable activities, or all activities, the routine activities which you used to do. You used to get up, brush your teeth, wash your face, cook something, read something, talk with someone. All these activities just loses flavor for that person. He just stops doing all this. He does that, none of this matters to me, so let me not do it anymore. So that is the way a depressed person will relate to, he is not interested in any activities at all. And if you speak to him, usually you get monosyllable answers. Yes, yeah, these kind of monosyllabic answers, yeah, it suggests, sometimes, yeah, they are depressed. And sometimes there is bodily changes also. There might be weight loss or weight gain, and there might be, sleep problems, either increased sleep or decreased sleep. There is excessive lack of energy which they complain. They do a small amount of work and tell that I'm extremely fatigued, I'm extremely worried, and I don't have any energy at all. And some people even complain that they don't have any concentration. They tell that my memory is gone, I don't remember anything. What happened yesterday also I don't remember. That is what they say. So it is not actually memory loss, but it is the decreased concentration that occurs due to depression. And there is this ideas of hopelessness, worthlessness, helplessness. I feel helpless in this situation. I feel that I am not worth anything. It is better that I die. I must have done something wrong. This is excess feelings of guilt. I must have done something wrong. I didn't look after my mother well, so there is nobody to look after me now. These kind of excessive guilt feelings, these also surfaces during depression. And all these might lead to suicidal behavior or suicidal ideation. Recurrent thoughts of death or dying or, suicide, even these might be a classical feature of depression. And how do we recognize that somebody is having suicidal thoughts or suicidal behavior? It's not like everybody comes and tells that I am feeling suicidal, or I am feeling like I better die, why should I leave? Not everybody is able to verbalize what they are feeling. And to recognize suicidal symptoms, I know that it is not easy, but if you are vigilant, you can experience these symptoms in people around you also sometimes. One is recurrent thoughts of death or dying, where they ask about, philosophical questions or existential questions. What is the meaning of life? Why should I go on living? It is better to die at this time. That kind of things. And those people who have experienced a recent loss, a significant loved one has died, or, there has been death or divorce or separation in the family, those people are definitely more vulnerable to suicidal behavior, especially during times of stress like this. And there is loss of interest in all activities. That is one of the features which points towards suicide again. They may stop speaking to friends and usual their hobbies and activities. They might just go away from that. They may start giving away their beloved things to others. I have seen a child who is just 9 or 10 years giving its favorite marble correction off to its cousin, telling that I won't need it anymore. I mean, we have to dig into that kind of things also sometimes. So, people who start giving away their valuables. If a 40-year-old, 50-year-old just starts taking out her gold and distributing it to her daughters and telling that, yeah, you take it, I don't need it anymore. Maybe that's a question mark. What is happening here? So, they might not verbalize it and tell that I'm going to die soon, or, I want to die soon. But there might be other behaviors which will point out towards in that direction. There might be changes in personality or behavior. Sleep patterns might differ. A person who is usually active sleeps for the most of the day, doesn't get up at all, very inactive, doesn't speak to people, doesn't connect to people, and there is social withdrawal. All these things can happen, and even eating behaviors may be there. There might be erratic changes in their behavior or personality, so that people point out that you are not the same as before. So these kind of things must ring an alarm, or a red flag should be there in the minds of others that something is going wrong. This might require some professional help either. And those people who tell about nothing is good is going to happen in the future, our whole world is going to come an end, this kind of despair or intense sadness or despair, that also might be a forefinger of what is going to come next, because they may feel that it is not worth fighting, it is worth going with the ship and dying. Ultimately everybody has to die, so why I will struggle, I will just let go. These kind of things, if it is there, then definitely people need to get alerted and work towards this and seek psychological help. And what happens when stress of such a pandemic proportion usually affects, other than the fear and worry? Worry is of two types: about one's own health, about fear of health of one's loved ones, that people who are dependent on you. Maybe children are dependent on us, elders are dependent on us, we are responsible for caregiving of some people, those people are dependent on us. So those people's health also becomes your concern. And changes in our daily routines or eating habits, Initially, when I had to go to work, I had to get up. When children had school, you get up at a certain point in time, 5:30 or 6:30, and your routine gets, goes on. But it is not like you didn't have free time then. You did have free time, but it was at the dictates of a certain workplace, or when others gave you free time, you had it. But right now, there is no compulsion. You don't have to get up at a certain time. You don't have to dress up in a certain way. So that just takes away the focus or incentive to be what you are usually. So to bring back that discipline and that enthusiasm and that spirit of living in our daily lives, that might be a challenge for many people. And worrying over chronic health problems, what happens at this time if my diabetes gets worse? What happens if my mental health problems get worse? And what happens if I suffer a stroke? What happens if my father, who is having a, he's on hypertensive and his tablets run out? What will I do then? So these kind of worries and concerns are a daily thing that is happening with the public. Sooner or later, what I was worried about was increased substance use during this time. People are locked up inside. So it is very easy to tell, we will have beer and we will chill out and we will forget the world for some time. And it's very easy to indulge in these habits if you're if you have if you're into alcohol or tobacco. It is very easy to get into these habits, and these are not very recognizable habits. People who drink will never tell you that they are addicted to drink. So you need to recognize that their pattern is shifting. A person who was taking only on weekends or only once in a month has been started taking daily, because he doesn't have to report on Monday. He can afford to have a hangover. Earlier, he couldn't afford to have a hangover. So Saturday was the last day he drank, and Sunday he kept it free. So that Monday he is very alert. But that doesn't happen anymore. And whoever made that song, हफ्ते में 4 दिन शनिवार होने चाहिए, I think his wish has come true. Now all days are Saturdays and Sundays, and we are not still happy. That is what we have to recognize, that this change in routine will lead to change in our behavior patterns also, and that might be very bad for our psychological health in coming days. And we have to understand that not everybody reacts in the same way to this kind of stress every time. Everyone reacts differently, and that reaction also may change over a time in one's lifetime itself. See, at the starting of the lockdown period, we found many people who were enthusiastic and optimistic, telling that in India mortality rate is low, we will overcome this, hum honge kamyab, and all those kind of things. But as it went on, and even after 2 months, you're not allowed to go back to work, you're not allowed to open your business and do something about it. The desperation and the depression starts setting in. The same people who were happy to start with it, telling that, yeah, I earned a break, it's okay, man, I will sit and spend some quality time with the family. Family time is not that easy. You have to, it is not that easy to spend quality time with the family either. You have to have a method or mechanism for that. So, you start getting worked up over it and tell that, when will this nonsense end? Why don't they just open and let us be? Those who will die, I don't care. I mean, I will take my precaution and be as it is. So, these kind of reactions change over time also. So, we have to understand again that as we are at risk of spreading infection and contracting infection, there are many more vulnerable groups who are much more vulnerable to the illness. So if you have such people inside your home or inside the category of your loved ones, you need to warn them. You need to take extra precaution for their sake. For example, teens and children who are under our care, we need to take extra precaution when they are concerned, because they don't know the enormity of the problem. If you have elderly living with us, we have to take care. We have to see that their medical supplies or stocks are complete, and we need to see that their movements are more restricted than us. And if we are healthcare workers, like I have my husband who works in the COVID block, so that person needs to take a lot more precaution while coming home, leaving home, so that he doesn't expose himself, neither exposes us to the disease that he has or he comes in contact with every day. So these kind of things we need to do it on a daily basis. One more worrying thing what I saw across this time, which my patients told me or which people who came in contact told me, was regarding the media portrayal of the disease or the disorder. There was lot of media hype, lot of media hype, and people were really getting tense about seeing those news from TV9 Republic. Some news came, some other regional channels, some news came. Daily WhatsApp media is all about coronavirus and coronavirus related jokes or debates or discussions. So this kind of information leads to a tsunami of information. You know, it is not just a wave of information, it's a tsunami of information where you may kind of get carried away by such information. And there were many people who told that, you know, you should stop this media from telling all these things to us. They are just scaring us. They are not helping us. So for such people who told me that, you know, the media is scaring them and not helping them. So this media hype and this media over information needs to be controlled. And wrong portrayal or fake messages or, you know, even hate messages by the media. This was very bad, and people really didn't, you know, suffered a lot actually, and they didn't appreciate what the media was doing. And there was one particular TV which told that, you know, today Modi will come and drop money from the helicopter, so you all people go and catch the money and all. This kind of false information, how can they do that? What is responsible reporting in such a crisis? Probably media, which is supposed to be the fifth estate of the constitution, didn't take its responsibility seriously. So I tell to the people, see, media, it is not in our control again. Media people are at their freedom to do whatever they want. But the remote control is in your hand. Our eyes, our nose, our what do we call indriyas, or, you know, sense organs, that are in our control. So if you don't want to hear the news, close your ears. It's that easy. If you don't want to hear the news, you switch off the TV. There is no need to be you know, updated with corona related information 24 hours a day, that is 7 days a week. There is no need at all. Because what are you going to do with that excess information? Are you going to go out, step out and help other people? Or what are you going to do about it? So we need to absorb information that is only necessary for us to keep ourselves safe. So for such people who are getting more anxiety, more panic attacks, or more depression, or, you know, even suicidal thoughts after seeing all this news from the media, I tell to them, the remote control is in your hand. Listen to corona news just half an hour per day. That is much more than it. And go through official websites released by Government of Karnataka or Government of India, or there will be some WHO websites. This will give authentic information about what is happening in the corona world or world with corona. So you can just go to those websites and absorb information on a regular basis. You can keep it like, you know, I will listen to corona related news only half an hour per day. And it is up to us how we react or respond to such news also. So not all news is truth. And not all truth is knowledge either. So knowledge and truth is something very dynamic and keeps changing. Today's truth may appear absolutely nonsense tomorrow. And knowledge is also not very static, you know, it keeps changing. So we need to tell that news is not always that important that we take it very seriously and let it affect our psychological health. One more bad thing which I felt during this pandemic, or which impacted the psychological impact, especially of our frontline workers, is the stigma associated with the coronavirus illness. See, anybody who has coronavirus, how are they treated today in our society? As if they are criminals. Oh, he has coronavirus, he has coronavirus. Excuse me, coronavirus is just a lung disease, or, you know, a breathing disease, just like pneumonia. And it goes off, for God's sake, for 14 days. After that, you're like perfectly healthy. Actually, you have developed immunity for that and you are no longer infected. And what happened? Even doctors who had served for 25, 30, 40 years in their place, when they died due to coronavirus, their bodies were not let to be cremated by the public. Dead body never transmits the virus. That is what we need to understand. Unless, you know, you jump over it and start kissing the body or hugging the body or something, dead body won't transmit the virus. You have to take due precautions and would have let them have a you know, dignified death or dignified funeral, because those kind of things will have a very deep psychological scar on the loved ones. The only good thing I thought about not giving them a decent cremation is those doctors were not alive to see the pain, or, you know, they were not alive to feel that undignified death that they had to die. So their loved ones definitely suffered. I am with them in that. And it is not only that. What about the living corona patients? I had one corona patient telling me we had a phone-in consultation and phone-in lines for help. He told that nothing hurt more than when the health worker or somebody, you know, just drop the food packet and drop the medicine packet from far, like as if I was a dog or something, you know. That is exactly the word he used, you know. I was in quarantine and people were giving me food and medicines and everything, and What they did exactly, he just dropped the packet, from me far away, and he didn't even look back as if I was a ghost and ran away from there. I mean, this kind of stigma, I had enough of a lifetime of insults in these 14 days rather than, in my lifetime. Nobody has treated me like that. These kind of things. I mean, why are we so scared? There were landlords who put out doctors telling that you don't come and live in our flat because your corona, you might get infected corona. Not only your corona infected, you might get infected with corona. This is the amount of stigma that we face today. What is that person's fault in getting the corona? That is what I want to ask every human being. It may happen to anybody. Anybody who has a body can get coronavirus. We have to take our precautions, but it is not the person's fault as such. So he may have got exposed unwittingly, unknowingly also. So, this kind of stigma associated, that also led to a lot of fears, concerns, and it was very disheartening to see that what happens. Maids and other people also were not ready to work in doctors' homes. So, when you ask the healthcare workers to be, it is your service, it is a very noble profession, you should help people and all. People also should be ready to help these people who are in the front line. They should be able to offer services to them, and those kind of things should be able to be done on a, it's a give and take kind of relationship that the community has to have, and not just beating, clapping for them in the balcony and, telling that you are our heroes and all. But going to the extent that you support them, you tell them, yeah, even if you are infected with corona, we will take care of you. That is what the community is for. And you have to care for the carer also if you need to get good care in the future. If you think you deserve good health care, you need to take care of healthcare workers also very individually. I think I will stop at this point, ma'am, and you may want to ask the audience what questions they have or anything they want to ask me at this stage. Ma'am, I am not able to hear you, ma'am.
Actually, there aren't any questions other than appreciation. It's very informative. It's very useful. It's very good. This is the right topic which we wanted to, deliberate on. All these things they have put in the chat box. Friends, any questions? Kindly type. Doctor is ready to answer your questions.
Ma'am, how much time do I have left? Ma'am, is there
half an hour.
The next part will be like how to cope with the stress, because I've just told about the problem. So there will be some tips to keep up our mental health and resilience during this time. So the next part I will be covering on that. So people, if they have anything else to add, it just need not be that, what are the problems, but if they want to add anything to what I have said, like they have come back some problems.
Now I received 2 questions. One is from Geeta Hiremat, who has asked, kindly give tips to manage the stress during this
period. Exactly. This is what I'm going to speak in the next part.
Yes, how to keep the mind sound. And there is another question from Dr. N. Rajeshwari, who has asked you to kindly give some tips for the people who commit suicide during quarantine period.
All these things I will be speaking in the next session. So probably I will go forward with that.
And what is the food for the mind?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, certain discipline, what they have got to follow.
Exactly. So when coming to what we have to do about this stress, so I always tell that telling about problems is easy, and if you tell about problems and leave without solutions, that is, I consider it very rude manners. I mean, you have to give solutions. If you have thought about problems, if you can make a list of problems 1, 2, 3, 4, I think you are well equipped, intelligent enough to come out with solutions also. So when I say that these are the psychological impact that is happening in the world, we should be able to, how to go through it, or how to manage this also. So as I said, stress is currently very universal, and this kind of stress we are always, all the people are facing, maybe at a different it happens at a different degree to everybody. So what do we do to beat this stress, or how do we come out of it? So let me tell that, for general people, what you can usually do is, one useful tip which I have given to people who they told that they were suffering, and they were suffering from huge anxiety and fear and uncertainty due to all this viewing of media and TV and everything. One useful tip which they found useful was, and they gave me feedback about that also, you have to take conscious breaks from media. It is not good that if you are stuck to your mobiles, or social apps, or because you don't have anything else to do, you have a lot of free time now, and internet is kind of, it is helping you stay afloat. So sticking to the TV and listening to all those news, it is not going to help. So you have to take breaks. It has to be conscious breaks. You have to tell people in your house, if I'm seeing TV more than half an hour, just switch it off. You can do that. Initially 2-3 days you will have that restlessness, that what is going on, that fear of missing out on news and all will be there, but it will not last long. After 3 days you will start to relax, and just half an hour of news per day is much more enough. Even indulging in social media apps, I don't tell that you have to go off totally offline on, you don't have to connect at all. I actually recommend you connecting online or something, but still you will have to have a control over what you are doing, connecting with the media. Next is taking care of your body. Why you have to take care of your body? See, when I'm speaking about mental health, why am I speaking about physical health? In my all these years of as a psychiatrist from 2008,
thanks, Ajay sir.
From 2008 onwards, well, that is like almost 12-13 years of psychiatric clinical practice, there has been never a person who came with an independent mind without a body, or there was never a person who came with just a body and no mind. So you have to understand that health, the body and mind are inseparable. They exist as a whole. And you can't just tell that, I am a psychiatrist, so I'm just going to see what your mind can do and about mental health tips. For a person to be normal or healthy, even mental health is very important. There is no health without mental health, and the mind requires a healthy body to reside. So we have to understand that for a healthy body, you require a healthy mind. And for a healthy mind, you require a healthy body. So the first step in being mentally healthy is having a body healthy. See, just imagine if you're physically unhealthy, how can you be mentally happy? So that is quite ruled out. That is common sense, that you have to be physically all right to feel mentally all right also. So the first thing is you have to take care of your body during this crisis. And it applies to everybody. It doesn't apply to those people who are fitness freaks or who are into glamour world or who need to look good for their profession or something like that. It is not about cosmetic. It is about health, and you need to focus on your body. And how do you take care of your body? First thing is what we put. See, for any program to be good, you have to have good inputs. So the same way, for a body to be healthy, you need to have a good nutrition. You have to have a good diet, well-balanced nutrition, calorie-conscious diet. See, there are many people who used to tell me, it is very easy for you people who are working away from home, working, outside to stay slim because you don't have to eat now and then. But people who stay inside, we tend to eat more. That is what they say. So this has happened to everybody in the house. Like, you need to, go to the kitchen and have some tea or biscuits or that thing every time. And there was a joke going on that, you have to wear a mask inside the house also to stop eating all these snacks and various items. So we have to concentrate on what we are eating. It has to be a meal which is nutritious, which you have to be calorie conscious, and it has to include a lot of vegetables and protein diet and all those kind of things. Avoid binging on carbohydrates or on desserts or sugar and salt. This has to be restricted. And next is regular exercise. How many of us really focus on exercise? WHO recommends that you exercise 30 minutes daily for at least 5 days a week. That is the amount of physical activity that is needed for a body to stay healthy. And initially, when I tell this all the time, even if there is no corona, I tell all these things. So the people used to tell me that, madam, there is no time. I have a very busy schedule, so I don't have time for exercise. Now you have all the time. Now you have all the time. That is what I tell them. Coronavirus pandemic has is a boost or is a good opportunity for people who want to, lose weight or, start to become fit. So there are so many exercises. If you go to YouTube, there are so many exercises which will suit your body type. Those exercises which you can do. And I don't tell just because I recommended today you start doing from tomorrow 30 minutes. It might be difficult for some people. Start with a graded thing, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, progress to 20 in a week. 30 minutes per day for 5 days a week is very much feasible. Even elderly people can do that. My mother is 65 years old. She is living with me. She has an activity of 45 to 50 minutes daily. It might be walking or it might be just running on the treadmill. Nothing is exempt for even elders. If they take care of their health, there is nothing like that. So they need to take care of their health. Some physical activity which leaves you sweating at the end of that activity. It may be even playing tennis. I recommend even walking, jogging, cycling, running on the treadmill, whatever keeps your fancy or, keeps your interest. So regular exercise has to be built in the routine to keep a healthy body. And then again, plenty of sleep. Many of us don't focus on sleep. What is plenty of sleep? 6 to 8 hours of sleep is good enough sleep. You have to have a good quality of sleep so that when you wake up, you feel refreshed, not jittery or, agitated, or you're still having eye fatigue or something like that. And now is a good time to catch on, your lost sleep also. And avoid substance use. That is very important for both physical health and mental health. Any indulgence in alcohol, tobacco, nicotine, junk food, all these kind of things has to stop. And this is the time when we have a lot of free time, chalo party karte hai, beer, that, these things and all has to take a backseat, because we have to recognize that if you get into addiction pattern, if you get into dependence, it's very difficult to come out. So people who were sticking to that normal habit of having once in a month, they have to stick to that pattern itself. They can't indulge more because they have the time and resources now. Next is one thing is we have to take time to unwind and relax. See, what has happened. Most of it is not under our control. The regulations are not under control. Lockdown is not under our control. What will be there available tomorrow or not is not under our control. People calling us back to work is not under our control. We may be ready to work, but people are not calling us back to work. Even that is a concern for many people. And there may be some job insecurities. The other day, my sister rang up to tell that just one person who was just sitting next to her in the cubicle got axed. That's all. I mean, he's not there the next day. I mean, his job is just cut off. So these kind of things will spring anxiety. What if they do that to me? I have EMIs to pay. I have some financial commitments. What about that? So these kind of things will have. So you have to realize that some things will never be under your control. So what you have to do about that is things which are under your control. You should start taking control of it. So your mind is under your control. So this is the time when you unwind and relax. And if you can't do it naturally, you have to learn some techniques to relax your mind. Something like, there are relaxation techniques. If you go to YouTube and type JPMR, that is progressive muscle relaxation. It requires a 20-minute training session or something. And progressively your muscles are asked to contract and relax. And there are some breathing exercises like Kapalbhati or Pranayama. Even yoga can be, taught online. It is best if you have a guru. I am not a fan of online things at all. I always feel offline things are very good. See, the same program, if I would have had on a stage, I would have been very happy with the mic and wearing a sari and everything. But I don't have the, luxury of having it offline. But anything online is better than having nothing. So you have YouTube thing which will teach you what to do to relax your mind. It may be mindfulness, it may be meditation, it may be yoga, it may be prayer, it may be relaxation techniques, it may be progressive muscle relaxation, it may be breathing exercises, it may be self-hypnosis, it may be visualization. All these things will let you relax your mind very consciously. And that will let you have not only a healthy body, also a healthy mind. Will induce you into natural good sleep and keep you from constantly worrying about the future or about your health. And once you are happy, once you are contented, once you are having that psychological well-being, you are able to help or look after others in your vicinity well. I have always seen that a cup cannot give to others or spill on or give to others when it is not full. So you need to be full. You need to be full. You need to be happy before you can go out and help others. So that is one thing which you have to realize, that you have to be mentally well and happy. And happiness and well-being or keeping ourselves healthy is a personal responsibility. You can't depend on others and tell that, my husband should speak nicely to me daily and, he should give me compliments. He should daily tell that I love you. then only I will be happy. My children should behave very nicely with me. I have done so much for them. And my in-laws also should say thank you every day. Then only I will be happy. No, you can't give the remote control of your happiness to other people and expect that they push the right buttons every time. Even if they push the wrong buttons, you are not supposed to give the remote control of your happiness in others' hands. You are the master of your happiness. Being happy, being healthy, being psychologically well is your personal responsibility. The moment you realize that, you stop putting that, stop playing that blame game and telling that he didn't keep me happy, he need to have behaved well with me, then I have to be happy, and all those kind of things. So you need to understand that being happy and being healthy and being mentally healthy is a personal responsibility, and each of us have a control over it. We may not have control over the stressors that is going on. We really have a control on how we react to those stressors and how we maintain ourselves during this periods of stress. And what they say about social distancing, actually I feel that it's a wrong term used. Social distancing is not what is required. Physical distancing is what is required. You don't have to hug and kiss everybody you meet, but still you can connect. You can still connect at a very nice level, and technology is helping a lot in that. You can talk with others, talk with friends, talk with family members, talk with community people online. Those with family members you can connect directly even, and a lot of things can be done online. Video chats, Skype, telephone, this text messages, social media. So all these things are helping us being connected with the community that we live in. So it is not social distancing that we are advocating. We are advocating physical distancing. So connecting with others is also important to feel that we are a part of the bigger system, and we are part of a part of the problem also, and that helps us not only to connect, we may also start feeling helpful and useful to others. So in order to feel that, I think we need to do all this also. And we should consciously stop spreading rumors. See, something comes in your WhatsApp message, you have a lot of free time. Before forwarding, we need to think, do we need to forward this? That is what we need to ask ourselves. And there's a very nice Chinese proverb. I am sorry to say that this also came from China, but a lot of things do come from China. A Chinese proverb, I think it comes from a Buddhist philosophy. It tells that how should our talk be, and that can be applied to even messages that we forward. We need to all these words or whatever that comes out of our mouth, or whatever we forward, that we can extend to social media etiquette or something like that. It has to pass through 3 gates, and in each gate the gatekeeper asks some questions. In the first gate he asks, is it the truth? So only those things which are true you can forward or you can tell it. In the second thing, it asks, is it necessary? That is what it asks. Yeah, it may be the truth, but do you need to tell that person the same thing? That is what it asks. And if you feel that it is needed to be told and it is the truth, definitely you can forward that message. The third thing is the most important. Is it kind? That is what it asks. Is it kind enough to forward this message? So is it good? Is it true? And is it kind? So if you are feeling that all these 3 criteria your message is transmitting, then go forward and forward the message. Otherwise, please stop yourself from spreading rumors, because we are the recipients of such false messages, and a lot of wrong can happen when we spread false messages. And help stop the stigma. When people tell that, there is a lot of bias also, when they speak against Muslims, or when they speak against China, or when they speak against people who are infected, or people who have been abroad, or they tell that it is the rich of the disease and the poor were made to suffer, or these kind of things. Whenever there is there, you have to understand the stigma affects everybody. So we have to live in a society where we can't do away with any of these people. We can't do away with China. We can't do away with a minor community. We can't do away with anybody. All are important in this community. So before we stigmatize anybody, we have to think twice. Is it worth stigmatizing? And what if we were in that receiving end? How would we feel? So that kind of empathy has to come, not sympathy, empathy. We place ourselves in other people's shoes and try to feel that what they feel about all this. So once you start developing that empathy, probably the level of stigmatization comes down. And as much as possible, you have to follow the rules and guidelines that the government of your place or local institution institutes for you. what guidelines they are telling. Stay safe, wear a mask. I know wearing a mask is pretty annoying, you know, it smells and you have a stuffy feeling and all. My daughter still refuses to wear mask. That's why she's not going out of the house either. So, it is very difficult to wear a mask, but you get used to it after some time. So even if it is difficult, even if it is annoying, if they tell you to follow some rules, to the extent possible, try to follow those guidelines and rules, because it is for our safety. You can put 100 questions, why that, why this, why are you not restricting him? And what about VIPs? And okay, if you wear mask, you will free of corona. Then why are you asking me to do all this? What is the guarantee that I won't get corona? If I wear mask, I won't get corona or what? See, you can ask 100 questions. Why don't you open mask? I want to see a film right now. See, it is not about our wants at all. It's about our needs. Can we manage with what they are telling us to do? So, as much as possible, try to follow guidelines. It may change every time. It may be confusing. It may be annoying. It may be very restrictive. But try to follow, because unless all else will follow, these guidelines will not have any effect on the public either. And you have to take care of your mental health, emotional health. You have to be aware that you have to take care and be conscious about it. And you have to keep your loved ones safe. That is also your responsibility. See, people in your prime, like me and you, who are working, who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s. So it is not that just that we have to take care of ourselves. There are people surrounding us. We have a family. We have to take care of them. So the first thing is, if there are any people in your family who are on medications, it may be routine medications like diabetes or hypertension, keep at least a stock of 4 weeks supply. All medical shops are open. You can have the contact of your doctor. He will arrange for you if you don't have the contact. There are people who will come and supply to your doorstep if you are quarantined for some reason. And you have to have at least a 4 weeks medical supply, so that you don't run out on medications. And when the strip is becoming empty, you should be aware of that. When there's a week's time, you will have to start getting resources and get the medicines back. And you have to monitor whether they are taking their medications correctly during this time also, and keep a watch on new symptoms which are arising. And stock up of non-perishable foods. See, perishable foods, if you stock up and it gets waste, it's a it's a resource waste. So I don't consider it good to stock up on things which are going to perish. But those things which are not going to perish, maybe like, biscuits or pasta or these things which are not going to perish for a long time, you can keep a stock of that, so that children don't get bored during this time, and you have something to eat if anything, everything stock becomes empty. And if you are sick for any reason, please stay at home. It may be a small fever, headache, a common cold, which you were not caring otherwise, and you were like a superhero going out during all these times. At this time, it is your duty to stay at home, and you can connect to others through virtual communication. Whatever you can do it from home. Work from home is a very good option at these times. And what should the community do as a thing? Community preparedness is very important during such a pandemic. What you can do as part of the community. If there is some gated community, or you are in a part of a community, whatever rules they are doing, be a part of it. Be a part of the policy making, be a part of the decision making. Try to help others, and don't just focus on problems. Problem focused people will never get anywhere. Solution based people will get everywhere. That is the definition of successful people. So you have to think about solutions. See, it's easy to ask somebody who has come from Australia, don't come out of the flat, stay in your flat. But what are you going to do to that person? You should tell them your newspaper, your milk, your bread, your groceries will be delivered to your doorstep. We will see to that. And as a community, you can very well do it. It's not that difficult. Here in Mangalore, in Kadri temple itself, I have seen people working even during the strictest of lockdowns. They were supplying 3,000 food packets, not less, 3,000 food packets to daily to migrant workers. 3,000. And they were asked to stay in each bus stand, so that overcrowding is prevented, and they were handing it out. I have seen it with my own eyes. And my own maid told she has not been cooking since 1 week, because they were delivered cooked food to them. So that is the extent of help that is available in a community, and that is where we have to be a part of it. So community can do a lot of things. It needs to be prepared, and it needs to follow guidelines properly for that to happen. And you have to understand that this is a mixed array of emotions. It's not like one emotion will predominate and others will go off and all. So sometimes who are coming out of quarantine, or who are asked to quarantine, they undergo a range of emotions. First is a fear, next is a worry, next once they are relieved, a feeling of relief comes. When they are very angry and frustrated, why are people treating me like I have done some criminal act, or I have put a bomb in some place, or this, why are they treating me like a criminal? These kind of, they have to fight the stigmatization also. And sometimes guilt also will be there. I'm stuck inside the home, I can't help anybody. That kind of guilt also might be there. So they too may suffer from some sort of psychological impact. So we need to take care of those people who are quarantined also. And what you can do on a daily basis, that is, many people ask me, you are locked down and you can't go anywhere, or your work is cut down, so what will you do? One is, what do we miss in workplace actually? Do we miss the coffee breaks, or do we miss the salary pay, or what is it that we miss? I think what most of us are missing is the routine. We used to get up and have a routine and do something from a certain time to certain time. That was what was keeping us going. So that loss of routine has to be made up during this lockdown period. So we have to have a built-in schedule. You make a timetable of your own. Instead, maybe you need not get up early. You can tell, I will get up at 8 o'clock, do this from this to 8 to 9, then 10 to 12 I do this, then 12 to 2 I do this, 2 to 3 is my lunch break. So you can have a schedule of your own. And once you have a schedule, so many things will start fall into place for those 2 months at least. So you will have to have a timetable for yourself during this period, and you have to practice all the hygienic measures. I feel that Japan and Taiwan did so well because they used to practice hygiene measures even if corona was not there. They used to see each other from a long distance. They used to bow. They never used to hug or kiss. And they always used to wear gloves. They always used to wear masks. They always used to sanitize their hands. They used to adopt a minimalistic kind of living where there were less objects to deal with, less consumerism. So that's why probably Japan and Taiwan did so well when their neighboring countries didn't do so well. And even after this pandemic is over, and even after this corona lockdown, everything is over, we have to avoid crowded places. There are so many things we were doing unnecessarily. Just like when you go to a mall or when you go to a superstore, you buy several things unwanted for you. The cart gets on filling things. If you have done online shopping, you will know. You want to buy one thing, but in your cart there are 7 things. So what about the 6 extra things? I think we need to rethink what we are going to go back to. So if there are crowded places, please try to avoid it. Don't go there. And about physical health, try to avoid things which are from outside, because that is where the risk is. So try to get home cooked food, and try to do some get some time. Even simple foods. You need not be a chef or a cook or something like that to have nice tasty food. There are many recipes which are very simple, very tasty also. And about mental health, you have to start your day with a positive thought. You have to think positive. There is no room for pessimism. If you start with a negative thought, everything will go down the drain, and you get sucked up into that negative vortex very soon. So you have to be positive. You have to be optimistic to start with, and don't listen to all the news excessively, and learn the relaxation techniques. Learn to be happy, and remember that happiness is a personal responsibility. And this is a great time to pick up on a hobby or learn a new skill. If you are been writing poetry, you can start writing now. I mean, if you want to learn something, my nephew learned Python, some software. I don't even know what is Python. Those kind of things, online things. There are so many things to be learned. All these things, you have to be grateful and helpful also for the situation you are in. You might be worse than 100 of people, but you are definitely better than thousands of people out there. And you have to bond and build relationships at this time. One more important aspect which I want to cover in a short period of time is, what do we do with our children who are stuck at home? They are away from friends, away from teachers, away from any kind of educational activities, and they are missing their school badly. For once, the people who hated school also are missing their schools very badly. And they always complain of boredom because they can't go and mingle with their friends. So what do you do for your children at home? Exactly what you did for yourself. Build a schedule for them. Have this timetable for them from morning to evening. And online classes are available. If the school is not starting, you can always research on your laptop, or with the data available, you can get the classes according to their grade level. So there are online classes. So don't force them to overperform. Maybe 1 or 2 hours per day. Focus on their education also. That is a good thing to start with. And definitely monitor their online activity. The moment you expose them to online, they can be predators to anything, from child pornography to games to getting addicted to internet and all. So you need to focus, because this is the time when we are pushing them, go to online class and all. So we need to know what they're actually doing in online class, and teach something called internal control. Always when a control is external, that is When the government is imposing lockdown on you, it's very difficult. When you are imposing lockdown on yourself, it is very easy. So the control has to come from within, whether it's for substance use or internet use or anything. So teach that to your children. You can control your internet behavior. You can, tell that, you will log in for 1 hour, take 20 extra minutes for your extra things in the internet other than education, then shut it off. Then you can log in the evening. So that kind of internal control has to be taught responsibly to children from childhood itself, and spend quality time with your children. When working mothers are working outside, how much time do we get to spend with the children? So it's not the quantity of time. Sit with your children, listen to them, share your stories, listen to their stories. Play some board games. It is very fun to play board games with children, and I play board games with my children with an ulterior motive. I want them to lose gracefully, because the moment they lose, they stomp their feet and start crying and all. That has not to be done. They should know that life is full of ups and downs, just like the snakes and ladder, and you have to lose gracefully also sometimes. So they have to develop that attitude of losing gracefully also, and teach and learn new skills. See, with the children, with my daughter, I have learned a lot of technical skills. I was very bad technically, and she has taught me these technological things. So you can teach them new skills, you can learn new skills from them also, and engage them in household activities. When the maid was not coming, you should tell them that, your grandmother is not there to do all the work. You can pitch in, you can wash your own plate, you can come out and hang clothes with me. So all these kind of things will teach them life skills. When they have to survive on their own in a hostel and all, they better learn how to wash their clothes, hang their clothes, make their own food, wash their own utensils. It is going to help them a lot, and it helps them to feel they're part of the problem and they're part of the solution. It helps them to bond with the family also equally, and doesn't leave them entitled to all our help all the time. And inform and educate about the disease. Suppose a 6th standard, 7th standard child asks you about corona epidemic, whatever you should be able to educate the child also. Like, you don't have to scare them, but you have to tell them that what is going on in the world and why all these restrictions are in place. And don't over expect from them. And I didn't know that it was a teachers forum. I'm very happy to tell this. As parents, I feel that nobody should bully their children, neither the teachers. There was a very disturbing news in the newspaper telling that, teachers declined to do online classes because parents were sitting in those online classes and commenting on them. That is really bad, because teachers also, it is the first time they are taking like this online classes, and it is very difficult for them. We have to understand that offline teaching is not like online teaching. I am a teacher myself in a medical college. I know I miss throwing chalk pieces at my students, if you want that, and have taken online classes. It's not at all satisfactory. So, you have to understand that teachers are undergoing through a lot of stress during this period. You can't expect them to be, 100% okay with taking online classes. And don't expect your children, you don't have anything else to do. No. You read full syllabus. You get 100% this time. I want 100% marks. See, it is not going to help. You're bullying them or over expecting from them isn't going to help, because everything is relative at the end of the day. How everybody performs is relative. If they have more time, their competitors also have more time. So it is not like only your child has more time and she has not used it or something like that. So we need to teach them to be responsible, focus on education every day. But there is no point in over expecting them or over bullying them, telling that, now you have all the time in the world, just sit and read. So that is not going to help the child or the parent either. And you have to focus on studies also at a time, and you make them learn new games, and teach them how to engage themselves also during this period. So this is about the children, and also monitor their online activities, which is very important. I think I have covered most of the topics which I thought I should tell. If there are any questions, I am happy to take it.
Yes. You can monitor your chat box also, madam. There are
I'm seeing
hordes of appreciation for your talk. And one teacher had asked to give tips on how to handle the children. You have already given it. How to handle ourselves during this isolation. And it's not a social isolation. It's a wonderful message you have given. It is physical isolation which we have got to maintain these days. So social contacts, we can keep in touch with our friends and the dear ones with the use of technology. So whatever questions they had, you have already answered it. And the appreciation is pouring in again. There is one Narendra V who says, very informative session, madam. Thank you so much. Like that, so many appreciations are pouring in. Awesome lecture it was, and thank you very much, etc. There is one Madam Nagaveni who has asked you to suggest some good books on psychology, understanding the mind, and how to practice certain controlling tips to the mind.
Definitely, there are very good books. The authors whom I suggest is Dale Carnegie books are very good. Self-help books, how to keep yourself happy, and those kind of books are very nice because psychologically it helps you prepare that something is under your control also. Right now, if you ask me about the pandemic and about the coronavirus and all, one of the things which I do during my free time now is I have a book list. And frankly speaking, I don't read books which help me deal with stress. I read quite the different kind of books, like which changes our perspective and which opens our mind to more thinking. So those kind of books will be really helpful. And it depends on individual perspective. I wouldn't suggest that you go do it yourself kind of books for everybody, but yes, it helps a lot. Dale Carnegie books are good. And I don't get the authors.
Dr. Joseph Murphy?
Like.
Dr. Joseph Murphy?
Yeah, that is very good. And I think this is a very good time to initiate reading in your children. Dr. Seuss books, which is so full of rhymes and knowledge that it surpasses even the philosophical parts. So if they get used to that kind of reading, they will go a long way. And my reading types is very different, so I am not a good person to tell that. But if you really want psychiatric help or psychological books, there are a lot of books online. You just have to type how to beat stress, and there are a lot of books or health books. But what I suggest is you go through official websites, something like from Mayo Clinic or American Psychiatric Association website, or if you can log into our website itself, that is Indian Psychiatric Society Karnataka chapter website. There are a lot of articles which all of us keep writing, and that goes into the website about how to handle stress or how to handle mental health or how to keep yourself happy. These kind of articles day in, day out are being put into that website for public. And there is a window for public to use also. Other than the things which are restricted to psychiatrists, if you go to IPSKC website, even there you will get many articles. So you can choose individual articles. And I see that there is a lot of awareness about mental health going on in newspapers also. Every day newspapers give something or the other about mental health or how to keep yourself happy and all. So even those kind of books are good. I don't know how many of you speak or know Kannada here. One thing which I have found very useful is DVG's Kaggas. So that makes you go through life, not just pandemic or coronavirus, more easily if you are adept to it. I would think of it as the modern days Bhagavad Gita or something like that. It is that profound. If you can get a copy of Kagga, DVG's Kagga, and gets its translation also, because sometimes reading that Hale Kannada might be a little bit difficult for people, but if you can get the translation, usually DVG's books come with translation and with the meaning both in Kannada and English. So if you can do that, it is very good. I mean, mental health like a quick 2 minutes do it yourself Moodle kind of thing. It doesn't happen that way. See, you may buy any amount of books and you may read anything, but it will not happen in a day or two that you become from an agitated person to a totally calm person in a day or two. But it definitely happens with practice. If you can practice that, it will definitely happen with practice. It will take time, but it will definitely happen. So don't expect very quick reliefs even when you seek professional help. It will take time, but it will show results. So that is the way it should be. And whenever you're into reading, go for something which is very deep, because that is where you will get more knowledge. If you go to some superficial kind of things, they may suggest some things which might not work well for you also. So when you go into reading, go for a little bit deeper philosophical things rather than, just superficial of things of how to do it yourself kind of books.
Yes. Nagamani madam might have got her answer for her question. That is, Dr. DVG's Kagga can be taken as a modern Bhagavad Gita. As doctor says, we can read it. ಪರಿಣಾಮಕಾರಿಯಾದಂತಹ ಸೆಷನ್ ಇದಾಗಿತ್ತು ಮೇಡಮ್. ನಿಮಗೆ ಅಭಿನಂದನೆಗಳು. Sends one of the participants here. So madam, it had been really very stimulating session, and thank you so much for your nuggets of information to maintain the mind of our dear ones, mind of others and our children and our friends, etc. So thank you. Definitely this had been a very memorable session.
Thank you ma'am.
As this is the last day of our webinar, principal of Host College, Government First Grade College, Hoskote, which is located in the rural part of Bangalore, would like to address the participants. Sir, are you online? Principal, sir. Yes, we'll connect to Principal Dr. Muni Narayanappa, who would like to address the participants. Sir, over to you. Sir, am I audible? We will unmute your audio.
Oh, now okay, madam.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Over to Principal Dr. Muni Narayanappa of Government First Grade College, Hoskote.
Thank you, madam. Good afternoon to all of you. Thank you, Anita, madam. We had a wonderful session today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Actually, we are all relieved from psychological issues today, including our college coordinators and all participants. Thank you once again, madam. Usually, we will have a talk on academic issues, but we didn't have such a talk so far. Really, it was a wonderful session that all we have participated today, madam. Once again, thank you, madam. I hope that all our participants also, they have enjoyed the sessions since beginning, and today is the last day. And last day, it was really fantastic program that we have conducted. Madam Anita, madam, she enlightened us on how that COVID affect on teachers and also students, and particularly online teaching. So inevitably, teacher has to undergo online teaching. So in that online teaching, what are all the problems that we are facing? So everything it was covered by Madam Anita, Dr. Anita, madam. Really, thank you, madam. So at the same time, the situation which emerged to have this program in our college. So during COVID pandemic time, we started to conduct this FDP, Faculty Development Program, keeping in the mind that to give some message to all teaching fraternity and teaching faculty that across in the country. And I am happy that all teachers, particularly from South India, they have joined our program, and they've all participated actively, and they have shown their interest, and they have sent message to us very favorably and regarding the activities which are taken place. And we had a before to start this faculty development program, and we have conducted a meeting. So during this meeting, so we thought of to conduct this faculty development program on particularly the COVID effect on higher education and society. And really our team, the coordinators who stand from since 27th to till today, they have been working for the successful completion of this program. And they have, during this telecast time, it is only 1.5 hours. And before telecast time, there was a meeting were conducted by our coordinators. And after the meeting also, there would be some work also which will be undertaken by all coordinators. And really, I am grateful to all coordinators. I would like to introduce them also. I will turn my Madam Prasanna Udvikar, madam. If you are having a photos and just you can display all those coordinators photo.
Thank you.
Welcome. So first of all, I would like to say thanks to our Srinivasulu. He is a person initiated to So is Mr. Srinivas.
Srinivas, sir. Sir.
Is Dr. Srinivasulu. So who is the person to draw that invitation? So he is the artist and he is the active person in our department, in our college. He is looking after physical education department, and also is having a habit of creating an artist always. So that made us to make this program. So really a fantastic invitation. Every day used to prepare that invitation, and coloring and matching and everything is done by Dr. Srinivasulu. So it is. I am happy that I am sharing. I am saying thanks to Dr. Srinivasulu, and the success starts from Srinivasulu and various other persons
Thank you so much.
have contributed for the success of this program. And so another person, his name is like a god name, ferocious god name, but is Mr. Narasimha. So he is always a man of cool. So he does work always very fantastically and perfectly, and he stood as a secretary and worked hard since 27th to today, and he is always been with the participants' responses and also activities of this program. And without his support, the program that would have not been successful. I would like to say thanks to Professor Narasimha also, and his support is also very much helpful for successful. So in addition, and other coordinators also, 3 members coordinators committee, which is headed by Dr. Harish Kumar, is looking after environmental science, Dr. Harish Kumar, and he took initiation to bring all resource persons, and all resource persons we have drawn, eminent resource persons, personalities we have drawn for this faculty development program, starting from economic impact till today, psychological effect on COVID effect, and in the meantime, so many resource persons who have shared their experiences regarding fitness, regarding their food habit, and various other related areas on which they have thought many information to us, and they have shared their information to us, and really we support. It is very appreciable, and he brought all the resource persons and is always touch with the resource persons to make this function successful. I would like to say thanks to Dr. Harish Kumar and team also. 2 more members also there. Dr. Manjunath, so he is looking after information science, and is always a man of searching information, and is always thinking ahead for giving new information, innovative information to the society. And the concept of conducting this faculty development program, which was arose from this information person, Manjunath. So he is a man who supported us for the successful completion of this program. I would like to say thanks to Dr. Manjunath also. So another Mr. Captain Chalpati is an NCC officer of our college. So he is a person to look after the studio. The daily we are telecasting this program, 1.5 hour telecast program. So in the meantime, before to that, there was a session always. There was a trailer was conducted by Chalpati along with Chand Pasha also. And after the session also, they were making the recording system also. And this program, if it is successful, there is a contribution from Chalpati also, Chand Pasha also, and they have contributed for success of this FDP program. Thank you, Chalpati and Chand Pasha, for your support. For a technical team, Sridhar and Venkateshulu also, they were working as a technical advisor. Since it is new to the government colleges, I didn't have any facilities, sophisticated facilities for conduct of this online program. And with all difficulties, they have drawn the items and equipments, and they have supported for the technical assistance. And Sridhar and Venkateshulu also, they have supported. I express my sincere thanks to Sridhar and Venkateshulu also. So the whole program icon is none other than Srimati Prasanna Udipikar. She took this program in such a way like a private TV channel. So without any obstacles, she carried the whole program starting from 27th to till today. If anybody have contributed maximum time for this conduct of the faculty development program, it is only Madam Prasanna Udpikar. It is my duty to say gratitude to Prasanna Udpikar
Thank you,
and
sir.
Madam, and you have contributed. Your work is really appreciable, and the success part, nearly your share is lion's share in the success part.
My
I'm
pleasure,
grateful
sir.
to you, grateful to you also, Madam.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so
So
much.
without support from the staff also, it is somewhat difficult to carry such a program. Our staff members also, they have supported all coordinators of our college unit like the IQAC, NSS, NCC, Scouts and Guides, and various other units also they have supported for conduct of this program, and also express my sincere thanks to them also. So when the day started, our College Development Council chairman, he is a young and energetic MLA of this Karnataka, and he advised us, he blessed us for the success of this program, and he has given instruction to give this online teaching to the students. The day will not come again. 2020 will not come again. The work, whatever the work is to be done in the year 2020, that has to be done in this year only. And really, he has enlightened. He has given instruction to carry out this program, and in the interest of student also. So when we are giving training to the teachers, in return it goes to the student also, and really he has contributed to us for in the form of supporting us for conduct of this program. It is my duty to say gratitude to our honorable MLA Sri Sharad Bachegowda for participation and successful completion of this program. So it is college which is affiliated to Bangalore North University. It is a newly started university. Vice Chancellor, founder Vice Chancellor Professor Kemparaju, who participated in the inaugural function, and he blessed us for the success, and he has given a various tips for conduct of this program, and online classes or various other academic issues also he has enlightened as he has instructed us. So it is my happy to say thanks to Professor Kemparaju sir for his support and successful completion of this program. So we plan to conduct this program keeping in view to satisfy you people, 100% satisfaction, convincing you people. If not 100%, if many of you are convinced and you have utilized out of participating in this program, that is happy. Even if anyone, if any one of you benefited, it would be inspiration to conduct further programs in our college. Hopefully I can say that majority of participants have benefited out of the program, and we have been receiving the feedback. Based on the feedback, that I can say that majority of participants across the country, many participants are joined from Rajasthan, joined from Maharashtra, joined from Tamil Nadu, and majority of from Karnataka. So all of them, I would like to say thanks to them, and with their support, we are having planned to start one more webinar on environmental issue, and it is going to start from 5th June onwards. It is a 2-day program, and the inaugural session will be inaugurated by famous environmentalist Sri Suresh Ublikar. Suresh Ublikar, you know this. Suresh Ublikar is an actor and is an environmentalist, and he is going to address us, and he is going to inaugurate on account of World Environmental Day on 5th of June. We are going to start one more program, webinar program, 2 days webinar program. I request all the participants to participate in this program and to encourage us to do various other programs in the interest of students and also in the interest of participants. So with this, I conclude my remarks, and the participants really they have showed the feedback very favorably, and at the last we have to send the certificates to them, and we are planning to send the certificates to you within 24 hours completion of this program. So that is our motto, to send the certificates, e-certificates, that is having been prepared by us. The team have prepared the certificate, and the reasonable time to send that certificates to you, we have planned to 24 hours, and I hope that our team will be accomplish the task within that 24 hours also. And I hope that after 24 hours you will not be enquired us that not getting certificate, and so the certificates will be issued to you in the reasonable time also. Once again, I extend my gratitude to all participants who have participated to this program during this pandemic COVID time 19, and many informations that were drawn from this program, particularly this today, the whole session was which was enlightened us, and it is a facelift of our lifestyle also. We didn't have such a counseling. It is almost all. It is completed like a counseling with a psychiatrist, and many informations, lifestyle information, teaching information, and related information that were drawn from Dr. Anita Madam, and various other sessions also, which was wonderful, and informations which was supplied to you, which was really, which makes you to make your academic activities for the accomplishment of our duties to the students. And for all this program, I hope that this program, which is benefited, if whatever the risk that you have taken, that will not be counted. If not all of you, if many of you are satisfied, many of you are convinced by our government first aid college, so that is the return that we are expecting from the participants. So with this, I conclude my remarks on conduct of this faculty development program on COVID-19 impact on higher education and society. Thank you, madam.
Thank you. Madam. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. That was our principal, Dr. Muni Narayanappa. Being very meticulous, though it is online, he always cautioned us, saying that all the networking, connectivity should be kept intact and should be taken care of much beforehand, so that the participants will not be disturbed. They will remain hooked to the technology and take the best benefit of this program. So, if the participants weren't there, then this program wouldn't have happened. Hence, friends, thank you for your support, encouragement for our educational enrichment program. We wish that you will again attend our next program that will be hosted on World Environment Day, 5th June. You have a film actor turned environmentalist. We have Ramakrishna Reddy, we have Suresh Hablikar, and we have Gopal Singh, Dr. Gopal Singh, who would speak on how to go ahead with sustainable environment and preserving and enhancing our nature. Growth is a perplexing thing, brilliant in its ability to fill while creating space for more and more. Wishing you all the success in your academic endeavors. We thank you one and all and take leave. Stay safe, stay happy, stay blessed, stay at home. Thank you, friends. Goodbye. Stay connected on 5th of June, the Environment Day.